Welcome to my YouTube video series where I provide a recap of the main story of Reverse, 1999. Today's video is episode 3. If you missed the previous episodes, I highly recommend checking out episodes 1 and 2, which are already uploaded on my channel. If you've already done so, let's get started. Chapter 3, titled Nouvelles et textes pour rien, begins during a class at the St. Pavlov Foundation, where we see a familiar face of Soneto, our protagonist's companion. Soneto, along with the instructor, discusses in front of the class full of children about gnosis, a form of knowledge valued by arcanists, distinct from humanity's reason-based knowledge. A key feature of which is that it cannot be verified independently and defies comprehension through reasoning. They also mention that unlike academic research, which must be testable and public, the unpredictability of arcane studies forces arcanists into a position of methodological agnosticism. Schools provide specialized training to help arcanists control their powers and maintain peace in the human world, which resulted in a divide between arcane studies and traditional academia, contributed to the rejection of studies like Arcanum. Historically, arcanists were linked to paganism and demonology, leading to trials against them. The character perspective then shifts, and the player is introduced to a new heroine, Mathilde, a young French student eager to show off her knowledge to the adult. Fortunately for her, the teacher asks the class reason behind declining mentions of arcanists in literature after the fall of the Roman Empire. But unfortunately for her, the instructor ignores Mathilde's raised hand and gives Soneto another chance to speak. The redhead know-it-all immediately offers her version. After the fall of the Roman Empire, arcanists used magia naturalis in wars and disputes, which angered the church. In Europe, Arcanum was seen as paganism and collaboration with demons, leading to persecution. Arcanists' attempts to fight back failed due to their impulsiveness and disunity, which caused their mentions in written records to decrease. Mathilde immediately disagrees and shares her grandfather's version. Long ago, those now called arcanists were respected philosophers, diviners, and doctors. They were revered for their wisdom and knowledge until suspicion and fear led to their being branded as pagans, freaks, and witches. Persecuted and isolated, they faded into obscurity. When they re-emerged, they were called arcanists, but their history had already been distorted. The attack on Constantinople, often blamed on them, was actually led by Western European lords seeking to plunder resources and seize the hidden knowledge of Arcanum. The true history of arcanists is remembered in ancient songs. Mathilde tries to sing the song her grandfather taught her in front of the class, but strangely forgets everything: the title, the melody, and even the lyrics. The unimpressive instructor continues the lesson and presents the official version of events, which aligns with Soneto's answer. After the Ottoman Empire's capture of Constantinople, Georgius Gemistos, an arcanist and philosopher of the Roman Empire, arrived in Florence. He brought with him a classical work on ancient theurgy, which sparked discussions and led to the creation of the annual meeting of humanists, the Chaldean Conference, where the use of Arcanum for human advancement was debated. After finishing the story, the instructor asks the last question: the name of the philosopher's work? Naturally, both girls leap from their seats, eager to show their knowledge. However, the instructor asks Verton, only to find that she is missing from the classroom. Taking advantage of the confusion of her educator, Mathilde shouts out the answer. After the lesson ends, Soneto leaves the classroom and bumps into Verton in the hallway. Our little truant is holding a frog in her hands. From Verton's story, it becomes clear that she skipped history class by entertaining herself by catching the amphibian by the Foundation's electric fence. After hearing her tale, Soneto informs Verton of her punishment, a timeout. Acting like a diligent student, she also scolds the protagonist for her truancy, referencing the student's handbook, an instruction about how the students from the School of Primary Defense of Mankind should behave, and reminds Verton that the children of the Foundation are meant to die as martyrs, fulfilling the Foundation's mission and completing given tasks. In response to this tirade, Verton remarks that the book and its rules stink. Suddenly, reality starts to blur before the protagonist's eyes, and she sees a hallucination of Schneider. The hallucinations fade, and the protagonist opens her eyes, now an adult in the Laplas Scientific Computing Center, inadvertently overhearing a conversation regarding her health between Mesmer Jr. and Madame Z, two Foundation workers. Now you, the viewer, are probably curious about what the Laplas Scientific Computing Center is. And even if you're not, I'm going to tell you anyway. The Laplas Scientific Computing Center, also known as LSCC or simply Laplas, is a research institute under the St. Pavlov Foundation that unites brilliant scientists from around the world. As the largest R&D organization of the modern era, its ultimate goal is to spearhead the fourth industrial revolution by merging advanced scientific technology with arcane skills. Laplas operates multiple branches, with some events in this chapter unfolding at its rehabilitation center. Picking up the thread of the story, the perspective shifts to the present day, where Soneto is visiting her senior colleague, the timekeeper. Passing through the building's entrance, she follows the corridors toward Vertine's ward. However, before she can reach the elevator, she notices someone following her. Following the official visitor guideline, she presses the panic button to alert the center's employees. But unable to wait for help, the ginger takes matters into her own hands and attacks the mysterious pursuer first, pulling a garbage bag over their head. The mysterious stalker turns out to be Matilda, already a well-known figure to both us and Soneto. Now a grown girl and monitor assistant, she is angered by the unexpected attack from her former classmate. She warns Soneto about her behavior, comments on it, and attempts to leave. However, she suddenly runs into another old acquaintance, Mesmer Jr. Mesmer is a graduate of the St. Pavlov Foundation and an employee of the same organization, specifically a psychoanalyst at Laplas's Rehabilitation Center. Having already gotten into a verbal spat with Mesmer, Matilda quickly retreats from the scene, leaving the two old acquaintances to talk privately in the corridor. In the end, Soneto and Mesmer Jr. decide to go to the ward of the timekeeper together. Once again, the narrative shifts to a different setting, the Joint Committee of SF, where two elegant women engage in a calm conversation. One of the participants is the already familiar Madame Z. While the identity of her companion is revealed through their dialogue, we learn that the unidentified woman is Constantine, Madame Z's superior, who holds the position of vice president of the Foundation. Constantine proposes the idea of treating Vertin through artificial somnambulism therapy, given that she requires it due to 4 years of continuous service as the timekeeper. Madame Z agrees with her superior and then presents a previously rejected project from the House of Integratus. The project aims to establish a new operational unit within the Foundation, essentially an autonomous group with its headquarters in Vertin's suitcase, led by Vertin herself. This group would consist of arcanists, refugees and exiles who ran from the storm, those who were saved by Miss Vertin and hid within the Foundation. After listening to the project plan, Constantine rejects it once again, arguing that the newly arrived arcanists need the Foundation's support more than the Foundation needs theirs. She also warns Madame Z that arcanists may rebel against the Foundation's humankind race supremacy principles, as they do not realize yet that they overpower humans by possessing supernatural abilities that ordinary humans do not. If given independence and freed from strict control, their unpreventable rebellion would put the Foundation's pillar at risk. However, Constantine adds that they still could make use of those new arcanists, and that things may change in the future if arcanists stop being, as she puts it, foolish puppets. Now it's probably time to explain the role of Joint Committee of SF and the House of Integratus in World of Reverse, 1999. The Joint Committee is the highest governing body overseeing the St. Pavlov Foundation. Its members, including Vice President Constantine, Madame Z, Pedra, and Katz, hold significant power in shaping the Foundation's policies and direction. Constantine, along with Pedra and others, adheres to the ideology of human supremacy, advocating for strict control and rigorous training of arcanists to ensure their complete obedience. In contrast, Madame Z, while less openly opposed, leans toward improving the overall treatment of arcanists, particularly Vertin, and strives to prevent internal divisions within the Foundation. The committee's president is a mysterious figure whose identity remains unknown to most, and it is implied that both the president and Constantine follow orders from an even higher, unidentified authority. The committee consists of at least 10 members, excluding the president. Its members are elected through a voting system, with figures like Richard, Gloria, Blackagate, and Uzo cited as key voters in debates such as the manpower draft. The committee's authority extends to the approval or rejection of projects, basically decision-making of the Foundation. The House of Integratus is another governing body of St. Pavlov Foundation. They, with the Joint Committee, are both in charge of lawmaking in the Foundation. They also influence lawmaking in other countries. Any affairs related to human arcanists will be handled by both the House of Integratus and the Joint Committee. The delegates from the House of Integratus makes proposals for new plans or changes in old ones, and the committee are the ones who approve or rejects them. Delegate Mark is a member of it. The House of Integratus at first submits one to the Joint Committee in the legislative session. If the Joint Committee approves of it, then it will be put in the voting stage where certain members of the Foundation can vote on the draft going through or not. But before the formal vote begin, parties opposed of it can challenge the ones submitting it to a public debate where the ones who submitted the draft can defend it against arguments thrown at it. Public debate in this scenario means outside of the parties involved, only other members of the Foundation can listen on it, and not outsiders. The public debate will be regulated by a chairwoman. Reviewers of proposals in the House of Integratus will not likely let someone resubmit a draft that did not get many votes. If a draft have around equal amount of votes supporting and disagreeing with it, then it will be caught in a tug-war between the two opposing parties. And if there is no clear winner after 60 days, then the draft proposal ends up being shoved aside and forbidden to be discussed within 5 years. There seems to be some laws and regulations about the public debate. The story now returns back to the ordinary staff, and once again we hear tirades in French. Matilda, still reeling from her humiliating retreat from her former classmates, is now talking to herself, reflecting on why she even followed Sonetto in the first place. As it turns out, Matilda is a seer, able to predict the future. During a recent divination, she foresaw that the arcanists recently brought to the Foundation are in grave danger. She also candidly admits out loud that while she considers Sonetto her rival, she finds her rather physically appealing. However, Matilda's self-directed monologue is cut short when one of the local patients, who have escaped by forcibly taking keys from a nurse, interrupts her solitude. Acting quickly to defend herself, Matilda subdues the ill man, knocking him out with surprising resolve. Meanwhile, old friends, Mesmer and Sonetto, exchange updates. Sonetto shares with her former classmates some shocking news. She tells her about the mysterious deaths of their peers at the banquet, and even the stranger falsification of Schneider's whole biography. As it turns out, the timekeeper's assistant hadn't been idle. She dug through archival documents and reviewed census records of arcanists from that era. Through her small-scale investigation, she concluded that Schneider was not the girl's real name. Moreover, Schneider's family hasn't been mentioned anywhere, and she really turns out to be a human who inexplicably wielded powers that before were proven to be controlled exclusively by arcanists. Mesmer thanks Sonetto for this revelation and, in turn, offers some information back. She reveals that Verton has once again fallen unconscious due to the chosen treatment method for trauma that was triggered by the repetition of a past traumatic event. Mesmer notes the unusual calmness Verton displayed during her most recent awakening, a stark contrast to her behavior during the breakaway incident, which she, Verton, has led in the past. Mesmer also discreetly shares an insight. Verton's current unconscious state is not merely due to trauma, but the result of a direct order from higher authorities to use specific therapy methods on her. Hearing that Sonetto has mixed reactions, one part of her is angered by the unwillingness of Foundation to actually take care of Verton, but another part feels the need to follow the order. Going back to school memories of Timekeeper, we see a bunch of young arcanists listening to the speech of an old principal, while only one little thing being of, and that thing is our Verton. She was an outstanding individual, quite literally, since she walked out of the lines in which all other students were organized, so she could see the principal better. Noticing this adult man points out Verton's uniqueness because unlike other children, she was brought to the Foundation just 1 month old and spent all 12 years of her life here. Sir gives Verton a right to ask him any question and instantly regrets it, because she asks him about Storm. Well, his reaction is entirely predictable, given that the storm, a catastrophic phenomenon, is veiled in secrecy and understood in detail by only a select few within the St. Pavlov Foundation's headquarters. Even among these individuals, most have only a cursory understanding unless they are directly involved in operations related to the storm. The headquarters, one of the rare locations in the world impervious to the storm's devastating effects, facilitates this stringent control of information. Those stationed in other branches of the Foundation often perish almost immediately upon encountering the storm, while those within the headquarters are strictly forbidden from discussing or independently investigating it. As a result, the spread of this forbidden knowledge is inherently restricted. While many Foundation-trained graduates eventually serve under its banner, less than half are granted access to the headquarters, further safeguarding the mystery that surrounds the storm. Baby Vertine, quite predictably, faces punishment from her instructor for daring to breach a taboo. Her penalty involves missing dinner and being isolated from her peers in a guardhouse, surrounded by the menacing Shamir worms for half a day. As the worms advance, the future timekeeper panics. Despite being classified as one, she has no arcanist abilities to wield arcane skill, leaving her unable to attack these mythical creatures directly. Desperate, she surveys her surroundings and notices a wool blanket. Remembering the legends that claim Shamir worms are powerless against this particular fiber, she quickly wraps them in it, neutralizing the threat. Afterward, the young girl leaves the room and stumbles upon a cell in the dark. Almost immediately, a young boy peers through the cell window and asks Vertin to help him escape. She explains, however, that due to the fallout from her earlier disobedience, her only plan is to slip out, grab some food, and return. She promises to share it with him, and the boy that goes by nickname The Ring reluctantly agrees. Later, we see the two young rule-breakers sharing a stolen meal, enjoying a candid conversation about the school's censorship and strict control of information. After finishing their meal, the boy reveals a stolen newspaper from the staff office. It contains proof of the catastrophic phenomenon known as the Storm and mentions Manus Vindictae, a group whose existence Vertine had no knowledge of until that moment. The scene shifts to Constantine's office, where she and Madame Z have another private conversation, this time focused on the monthly department report. Madame Z reassures Constantine that the situation remains under control, mainly because European mass media has aligned with their narrative and refrains from covering the storm directly, as the region has not yet been affected. She notes that the majority of the populace continues to trust official sources, despite Manus Vindicti's counter-campaign. Reports from the School of Primary Defense of Mankind, SPDM, indicate the circulation of pamphlets spreading narratives contrary to the Foundation's stance. SPDM, an academy within the St. Pavlovo Foundation, trains young arcanists to control their unstable magical powers. They use scientific stabilizing devices, though some suspect these may be experimental tools in disguise. Students are taught both standard and arcane subjects, such as history, biology, music, and potion mixing, all under strict censorship regarding the outside world, particularly the storm. The school, which includes separate canteens for staff and students, dormitories, a library with an underground air raid tunnel, and sports fields, is at least over 700 years old, though official records claim a history spanning millennia. SPDM primarily serves to produce loyal operatives to advance the Foundation's agenda, rather than being a sanctuary for orphans. In their discussion, Madame Z and Constantine also uncover the peculiar method by which pamphlets were distributed. Dropped from the sky by creatures called Ulysses. These 6-foot-tall, water-dependent, low-stamina, flying arcane beings from Cameroon have been used to carry the pamphlets to cities. From this, they deduce that Manus Vindicti likely operates from a headquarters located near water sources. Following this insight, the head of the Foundation decides to take action, instructing the bishop and the army secretary to locate the enemy's lair. The Foundation's next step in this batch is to provide airspace security for the school by calling in the Xeno Air Forces and Pax House. Meanwhile, in the Air Forces, we see young troops flying on brooms conducting a special operation to eliminate Aloysius. Among them, Lilia stands out the most, a bold and daring, skilled pilot for her age with a rather strong Russian accent. The next chapter begins in a classroom where students pass around a mysterious note that reads, "If you also curious about the world, 9 tonight under George the Oak." The sender is anonymous, leaving everyone confused. After class, Vertin is confronted by a local snitch who aggressively threatens her, demanding her to clean his shoes for a week or else he will report her to the instructors. However, Vertin remains unfazed. Since there's no evidence tying her to it, especially since the snitch himself is holding it, she decides to turn the tables and blackmail him in return. In response, the boy, along with his two friends, starts to gang up on Verton in a 3-on-1 fight. However, their altercation is quickly interrupted when rumors begin to spread about the imminent arrival of the instructors. In a panic, the fighters scatter and hide, fearing the consequences of being caught. Later that evening, under the sprawling branches of George the Oak, Verton and her partner in crime, the Ring, wait patiently for others to join them. Soon, Mesmer Jr., Isabella, Penny, and Matilda arrive. Verton begins by reassuring the group that she has no intention of defying the principal or sparking a rebellion, easing their initial tension. The conversation quickly shifts as the students voice their frustrations with the oppressive student's handbook, which enforces conformity, erases their cultural identities, and cuts them off from knowledge of the outside world. Verton and the Ring then encourage everyone to share sketches of their lives before attending the school, hoping to piece together a collective picture of their lost pasts. After this heartfelt exchange, the group reads the pamphlets smuggled in from outside. Enthralled by the poem within, they decide to adapt its words to the school melody and sing it together. The success of their impromptu performance emboldens them, and they agree on a daring plan: to perform the song during the parade ceremony, ensuring the big head of the school will finally hear their voices. 2 weeks later, on day of the parade ceremony, students line up on the grand stage, mentally preparing for their rehearsed performance. Among them, Verton and Sonetto quietly converse. Sonetto, observing Verton's recent suspicious behavior, pleads with her not to do anything reckless or break the rules, warning that she'll have no choice but to report her to the instructors. However, Verton, ever nonchalant, brushes off the warning and joins in as the students begin singing their prepared song. At first, everything appears routine, but as the song progresses, the principal catches on to the peculiar word choices, his expression shifting from curiosity to alarm as he recognizes Mana's pamphlets. Realizing the children are deviating from the script, he swiftly orders the guards to intervene. Guards rush in, spraying the students with an Dumbitter potion meant to subdue them. But instead of succumbing, the children, now feeling betrayed and fueled by determination, continue their rebellious performance. Their defiance is short-lived, however, as the guards escalate their response, releasing clouds of tear gas onto the stage. Chaos breaks in.
I said shoot it above them! Why did you shoot
In
it
the
at—
aftermath of the parade ceremony rebellion, Madame Z delivers a report to Constantine in Joint Committee of SF. She details the investigation, noting that while the rebellion resulted in non-lethal injuries for the rebel leader, Verton, her condition led to a brief coma. Thankfully, she has since recovered. Constantine, however, shifts focus, remarking on a curious observation. Despite her earlier contact with the storm during the frog-catching incident near the gates, Verton sustained no harm. Constantine theorizes this resilience may stem from unique genetic traits inherited from Verton's mother. Concluding the meeting, she decides to place the school under special oversight, emphasizing their intent to mold Verton into a figure who will ultimately benefit the Foundation's goals. Meanwhile, back at the School of Primary Defense of Humankind, the students endure another day of rigid instruction. In one classroom, an instructor gives a monotonous lecture on Alessio creatures. Sonetto, sitting beside Verton, appears distracted and guilt-ridden. Quietly, she slides a stack of notes toward Verton to help her to make up for her absence during classes over the past week. Sonetto then whispers to Verton, mentioning that the other rebels confined to the guardhouse won't be released until the following week. She hesitates before adding something unexpected: a compliment on their rebellious song, despite knowing it's unlikely to be heard ever again. Later, Verton visits the SPDM library to return a book titled Selected Speeches of School Principals to the librarian. However, this is no ordinary errand. Hidden inside the book is a message meant for her associates. The book, along with the note, is retrieved by Isabella, who is serving her public work hours as a library assistant. Suspecting something, Isabella quickly flips through the pages and discovers the note. It reveals that Verton has obtained a detailed map of the school and its surroundings, which is critical for their operations, as they are now under increased surveillance. The note also specifies the urgency of finding a new meeting place. Moments later, the Ring arrives to check out a study of SPDM history, an everlasting order. Inside its pages, he finds further instructions. Their next meeting will take place in the air raid tunnel beneath the library at 7 p.m. That evening, only half of the original Revolution gang gathered in the tunnel. Verton unveils an extended version of the map, which includes secret underground exits leading to the outside world. Together, the group selects a route, a time, and finalizes their escape plan, intending to use Shamir worms to unlock the gates. Verton and the Ring explain that they obtained the map from malicious airdrops, whose deliveries have recently increased significantly. These drops now include maps, newspapers, survival guidelines, and field rations, clear signs of external support given by Manus Vindictae. Together, they choose a route, set a time, and plan their escape using Shamir worms to pick locks. After finalizing the plan, the students stealthily return to their dorms. However, Matilda lingers behind to speak privately with Verton. She insists that despite the challenges of life at SPDM, she feels compelled to stay and fulfill her duties. Matilda also promises to inform Mesmer Jr. of the escape plan, ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to decide for themselves and that no one is left behind. The next morning, in the familiar setting of the Joint Committee of SF, Constantine is seen commending Mesmer Jr. and the entire Mesmer family for their loyalty and cooperation. Constantine retrieves the map detailing the breakaway plan from Mesmer Jr.'s locker, which Mesmer Jr. appears to have willingly allowed her to access. After Mesmer Jr. leaves, Madame Z enters the office and promptly begins her report. She reveals that the storm's arrival is expected on the evening of the 27th, a date accurately predicted by none other than Manus Vindictae. Surprisingly, Manus Vindictae shared this crucial information with the Foundation after several of their members were captured and one of their headquarters was raided. As Madame Z concludes, Constantine calmly explains how everything is falling into place according to her own carefully laid plans. She confides that she has been aware of Verton's escape plan all along, its route, date, and even many of the details. The only uncertainty is the exact composition and number of fugitives involved. Rather than stopping the escape outright, Constantine intends to subtly modify it. Her strategy is to quietly create obstacles that delay the students' departure, ensuring they are intercepted not by Manus Vindictae, but by the storm itself. Surprised and uneasy, Madame Z questions the ethics and wisdom of Constantine's decision. However, she quickly realizes any challenge would be futile. Constantine's logic is rooted in the Foundation's gain. The escape will fail catastrophically for all participants except Verton, since Storm would immediately reverse all innocent children. The tragedy will compel Verton to return, shaken and disillusioned by the dangers of the outside world. Witnessing the devastation firsthand will make Verton loyal to the Foundation, as she will come to believe that its intentions are truly protective and that there is no viable alternative. Which is highly valuable since they have been looking for someone with Verton's abilities. With the plan set in motion, Madame Z begrudgingly acknowledges Constantine's ruthless yet effective methods, though her unease lingers in the shadows of the office. Later, from the Timekeeper's perspective, we witness Verton and the other rebel students making crucial adjustments to their escape plan in response to the unexpected obstacles. The group carefully divides the tasks among themselves, assigning roles to ensure every aspect of the plan is executed efficiently. Before they part ways to carry out their individual responsibilities, Verton distributes magical earrings to each participant. These earrings, a thoughtful gift from Matilda, serve as enchanted walkie-talkies, allowing the group to maintain communication throughout the operation. As the escape unfolds, everything seems to progress remarkably well, almost too well. Verton can't help but feel a creeping unease, an odd sensation that everything is happening a bit too smoothly. What she doesn't realize is that Constantine is orchestrating a larger game, one in which Verton is unwittingly playing her role to perfection. Meanwhile, we glimpse a drunken Lilia secretly observing the children from the shadows, clearly assigned to monitor their actions. Eventually, all the rebel students gather in the air raid tunnel, only to find Lilia lying in wait. Known for her fiery temperament, Lilia immediately seizes the opportunity to taunt the young rebels and engage them in a brief but intense skirmish. However, the confrontation is abruptly halted by the unexpected arrival of Sonetto. Appearing as if out of nowhere, Sonetto sides with her deskmates and uses a paralyzing arcane incantation to paralyze Lilia, neutralizing the threat of experienced soldier almost instantly. With the path now clear, the rebels take a moment to bid an emotional farewell to Sonetto, who stays behind. As they step into the unknown, the students carry no regrets, only a newfound courage and unity as they embrace their uncertain futures. Once they cautiously approach the last barrier standing between them and freedom, the simple wooden door, they are suddenly greeted by the sound of heavy rain. The kids, filled with excitement and anticipation for the unknown world awaiting them, decide to open the door together.
Burton, do you want to be the timekeeper? Checkmate.
And with that, Chapter 3 comes to an end. Before you close the video, may I quickly ask you to subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, share the video with your friends, and most importantly, leave a comment with your thoughts on this chapter and any constructive critique that could help me improve my future videos. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to all my subscribers who patiently waited for my return and showered me with so much love. See you soon!